afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. And as I set off on my way to find you all kinds of wonderful and interesting things on Djuma or Arathusa or Cheetah Plains this afternoon in the Sabi Sands in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa, I've encountered something of a roadblock. So before we go into our full-on introduction, I'd like to just say hello to Sam, who is over here. He's just popped out of the drainage line as we came walking past. And Sam, what have you been up to this afternoon? The crew of WildEarth full of surprises. Yeah. Cheers, guys. So, on this warm and sunny afternoon of 25 degrees centigrade, 77, I believe, in Fahrenheit, we are, as I said, full of surprises. And if you have any questions about those surprises, not, of course, about Sam's surprise, because I can't answer those questions, you can send those through to hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. Whoop, nearly stalled going up the hill. Or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And as Sam said, I have Brian on camera with me this afternoon. James will be out with Viam at some point a little bit later. We have recently, and by recently I mean within the last 2 or so hours, transferred all the equipment from Wendy onto Jigger, and Wendy once again going into the doctor, the vehicle doctor. And if you are brand new to the show, then what I've just said would have been thoroughly confusing. Wendy is a vehicle, Jigger is a vehicle, and this is Rusty. Rusty, so far, contrary to all expectations and belief, has been doing exceptionally well this year, despite being given a name that would have suggested or inspired slightly less faith and hope. Now, leaving Sam to his filmmaking and drag mark following, we're on our way to see if we can follow up on Tsakani, the female leopard that Brian and myself encountered this morning. It was a very exciting moment for me. It was the first time I have ever seen her, and for Brian only the second time he has ever seen her. And really, really interesting to see just how these leopard genetics really play out. Now, Tsakani is the daughter of Kwetile, the recently, as far as we know, the recently deceased leopard. Very, very sad circumstances involving potentially a snake bite, although we probably will never know exactly what happened to her mother. But Tsakani looks almost like a little miniature of her. Tall leopard, very strong looking and very, very young. And she looks as though she's thinking about moving into that territory in the corner, that almost a no man's land between Karula and Shadow, up in the northwestern corner of Djuma. That, of course, is what we have planned for today. I know that James's plan was to follow up on the wild dogs that we also had this morning on the Sunrise Safari, albeit for the briefest of moments, before they somehow managed. Brian and I sort of are of the opinion that they flew. They grew wings and they flew, or they did something, because they somehow managed to evade 5 different vehicles, all looking for them. And the worst part was they were running straight towards me as they disappeared. They disappeared into a drainage line and just never came out the other side. And where they went from there is absolutely anybody's guess. I suspect that they managed to acquire some breakfast somewhere along the road, and that's why they disappeared out of view. We didn't manage to find them, and then, of course, the unsolved mystery of the lioness that was seen on the Djuma Dam camera. Now, this lioness, or these lionesses potentially with the Nkuhumas, now, they actually play a role in Sam's whole story of this drag mark, but that's all I'm going to tell you, and you'll just have to stay tuned for the next portion of that particular saga. Now, Aaron apparently would like to go to Cheetah Plains to see jackal and ostrich, and maybe even cheetah, dare we say, or in Kanyeni, who of course I haven't managed to see just yet. I'm still waiting eagerly in anticipation for that moment. Now, Aaron, yes, potentially we can this afternoon. And obviously, as you know, we can't really plan things out. The reason I'm not rushing off there straight away is between here and Cheetah Plains, there's actually a few signal black holes. So basically places where I'd have to drive through and I would disappear off your screens completely. Now, normally what we do is we switch between each other. So James would immediately take over the show whilst I was getting to Cheetah Plains. But since Jigger seems to be having some, I don't suppose, we can't really call them teething problems since Jigger, the vehicle Jigger, has been around the longest. Oh, little one. What? Where have you come from and where is your mommy? I know you can't see it just yet, but if I move forward now, this tiny little kudu calf is going to disappear. It's already running when we first came past. Now this is a very tiny kudu, much younger than the ones we've seen over the last few weeks. Yes, little one. It's a dangerous world out there. Where's your mom? Gentle whistling of a red-crested korhaan. Let's see if we can't sneak forward. Obviously, I don't want to scare it at all. It seems to have relaxed a little bit. Let's just let the engine run for a moment before we go forward. Let it get used to the idea. And then without touching... Oh! Never mind. Have our answer there. There's Mum. She was just hidden behind the tree. Baby obviously rushing to catch up with her. She, of course, has a little bit more experience than her youngster and knows that the vehicle is not a threat. Look at that little thing. I think baby kudu might be my favorite young antelope. Yes, I'm talking about you, you gorgeous thing. Look at those giant ears. There's just something so sweet about them. Their face is not quite as long as the adults, with disproportionately large ears and a rather gangly look to them. You can see how much smaller it is than Mom. And at this point, absolutely impossible to tell if it's a little boy or a little girl. In no way started as growing its horns if it is a male, or acquiring the larger, thicker neck. Right, stopping. No, it's carried on. Let's try and reposition one more time. But yes, I think it might be my favorite baby antelope. Such a difficult one. I'm not sure if you all out there agree with me or not. What would be the cutest, what could be cuter than a baby kudu in terms of antelope? What do you think, Brian? Baby impala are quite cute.
They are. I quite enjoy baby wildebeest.
Yes, I was just thinking baby wildebeest. I should actually say baby wildebeest are my favorite. Having seen a live birth, and Brian, I know, has filmed a live birth before. Kudu are almost the ghosts of the bush at times, and Mom and baby have already managed to pretty much melt away and disappear. I can just see Mom's head bobbing about. Oh no, now that's gone too. Amazing. Disappeared completely. And that, of course, is one of the reasons why the female kudu do not have horns, unlike, for example, in the case of wildebeest. Wildebeest preferring a much more open habitat, so the females need those horns to protect themselves and their offspring. Whereas with kudu, they are quite happy in thickly, densely vegetated areas like the one that she's just disappeared into, that affords them a better opportunity to hide away, and a sort of environment where horns are actually come at something of a disadvantage. So we shall leave our lovely little kudu. And there we go, beautiful contrast. And somehow with the males, they are always a little bit more shy than the females. Hardly ever get to spend a great deal of time with them. But there he is with his magnificent head of spiral horns. You can see what I mean about the thick, shaggy neck. Much more powerfully built than the females. And those incredibly hefty horns that weigh an enormous amount. Now, the reason the male has one, that they have to compete with other males for mating rights. And Durant has suggested, on the subject of antelope and the different species and the different babies, Durant has said that the baby steenbok, with those adorable eyes and ears and cute little faces, are probably also one of the cutest. Okay, yes, absolutely, fair enough. Now Sam's just trying to get hold of me. Let me hear what he has to say. Go ahead, Sam. Sam, Jamie standing by.
Jamie, if you copy, and I'm going to be walking through one drainage line towards Weird River Dam to see if I can pick up any tracks.
Copy that, enjoy. Sam telling me. Sam actually surpassed me this morning in his absolute sheer determination to find those wild dogs, and he is still quite thoroughly determined to follow up. So he's telling me that he's going for a walk through the Mulwati drainage line, a river system or a creek-like system that runs right down, cuts right through the center of Djuma. They were last seen disappearing into a tributary of that particular drainage line system. Now here's a first for me in terms of questions, and it's a really good question, and it's one I've never even asked myself. So Debbie in Vancouver, thank you so much for your question about why it is that antelopes' heads bob when they walk. Is it purely physical, or is there any other reason behind it? Well, Debbie, as far as I know, it is purely physical. My brain was sort of rapidly rushing through the different ways or the different reasons why they might do that head bob, whether it might be perhaps to do with sort of similar to an owl, where the different, having your ear holes at different levels, just ever so slightly, will allow for a far better idea of where a sound is coming from. So in my head, I was sort of rapidly thinking through, would a movement like this perform a similar sort of function for a sound if they're just raising and lowering their head? But Debbie, I don't think so, to be honest. I think that might be reading a little bit too much into it. And I think it is a physical thing, just like we swing our arms to balance when we walk. I think that the natural walking motion of a kudu causes that backwards and forwards motion of the head. So that's my theory. That being said, I don't know for 100% certain whether there's not another reason. Now, Leopold has also answered or asked another question that I've often wondered, but I'm uncertain as to the answer. So Leopold would like to know, Do animals enjoy music like people enjoy music? And the answer is probably not. They probably don't have the same degree of understanding, but that being said, they can obviously pick up on the different moods of music. So angry, aggressive music or thumping, banging would probably upset them, especially since their hearing is so much more acute than ours. That being said, I have heard of and read of several cases where an angry elephant herd has been calmed down by music, whether through singing or through the car radio. So that I have heard. As to whether or not it is true, I cannot personally attest to the truth of that. Wouldn't surprise me at all. That being said, this brings to mind a great game that Andrew and myself started a couple of months ago, and every now and again it springs to mind once again, and that is, what type of music would each animal listen to, each species of animal? And we went from sort of the sublime to the ridiculous. I think that the impala listened to Spice Girls, and lilac-breasted rollers listened to Lady Gaga, and all kinds. Hyenas was Die Antwoord, which is a South African band. So you can entertain yourselves thoroughly as we go on throughout our drive, thinking about what different styles of music each species of animal would listen to. Now, we do have one expert on music who is waiting to say good afternoon to you all. So let's head over to James.
There, everybody, is an elephant bull, a young bull hiding behind a combretum bush because he's a little bit shy. A little bit like I was for the first 18 minutes of this broadcast. Welcome to the Jigger. Yes, you heard right, for our old viewers. We are driving on Jigger today. Jigger, this equally offensive Land Rover that we've been driving, that is sort of equally offensive to Wendy. Viam is most excited to be back on her. You have to have a left leg extremely powerful, sort of as powerful as Serena Williams is, if you like, if you wanted to press the clutch. I'm not as powerful as Serena Williams, so this is going to be something of a physical trial. My name is James Henry. Viam is on camera. That's his very sharp thumb. The moment, and that, of course, is an elephant. We are just as live as Jamie, so please do talk to us. Hashtag SafariLIVE, questions at WildEarth.tv. And the reason I'm late is that I've been doing a walk through the Milwati drainage line, seeing if I can find some tracks of those wild dogs that vaporized this morning sometime. I didn't find one track. I'm not vaguely surprised that they were lost in that area yet this morning. It's extremely difficult to get into on foot, let alone in a vehicle. So Sam is in there now, and he's going to see if he can find the dogs, and we'll see what else we can find. While I was walking along there, it's a lovely atmosphere of the afternoon. It's warm, autumnal, and just very comfortable to be around in. And then as I came out, I heard crack, crack. And that was this elephant bull creating himself a little hidey hole there in the combretum calinum bush. I nearly said the wrong kind of combretum. Let's go around the other side of him, have a look at his face. I think he's a little bit nervous. Well, maybe he's just hungry, a bit ill-mannered. You can see, I'm just putting some sun cream on my lippies, which are very burned. The atmosphere is very dry. Katie, you're in Indiana. Sorry, this is not going to be a bit of you. Let's go back again. Let's see if he sticks his head up. Katie, you're in Indiana, and you say it's your first drive you watched for a while, and you say, let's go and find some lion cubs. Well, Katie, while that demand is outlandish in the extreme, it's not that unlikely. There we go. Hello, big fella. We think that one of the Nkuhuma pride is giving birth, possibly, or has given birth, in the drainage line to the west of Buffelshoek Dam. So that's very exciting. We probably won't view those cubs. Certainly going in there on foot would be something suicidal until those cubs are a little bit older. But we can view them from about 6 weeks, because she'll introduce them to the pride then. And then the Styx pride, their cubs have been viewed. And, well, they're very little now, probably about yeah, 6 to 8 weeks old. And we may be lucky that they come on here. They've been on Hofmanns, which is to the south of us, and Little Gowrie and Vessels. Those are the three sort of reserves right to the south of us. We might see them. They could also easily come on to Cheetah Plains sometime soon, and we have been spending a lot more time there. So the Styx Pride cubs are certainly a possibility. So Katie, try and stick with us for a few more drives. Couple of weeks, we should be viewing those Nkuhuma cubs quite frequently. Otherwise, we might be lucky with the Styx. This little bull, I think, is I think he's a bit lonely, really. He's probably only about 18 years old. He's got some fairly insubstantial tusks there, and yet he seems to have gone it on his own. Maybe he was a bit recalcitrant within the herd, and the matriarch told him that he needed to go and find his own path in life, and that seems to be what he's doing. And just a very important bush that he's eating now. He's eating something called a black monkey thorn. Not black monkey thorn, a black monkey orange, or Strychnos madagascarensis. And it's a massively important tree in so much that it is a bush encroacher. Now, all around where that elephant is, you can see that there are trees of the same kind. Now, those are all Strychnos madagascarensis trees, and in the absence of elephants, they will take over an area like this where it will become almost impenetrable, especially if there is no water in the surface of the soil, which there isn't, of course, because we've had a very, very dry summertime. So there is going to be a thickening of the bush, but thankfully the elephants will reduce those effects as they come through and browse during the course of the winter dry season. Jamie has got some striped ponies to show you, so let's head across to them.
Sitting on impala clearings, and we've just been watching this zebra have a wonderful dust bath. I'm hoping they're going to carry on, continue. Oh, we're going to have a mutual grooming session quickly, with a side of slight aggression there, using each other as scratching posts. Zebra absolutely love rolling in the dust and the dirt. You can see how every time they shake, clouds of dust. There we go. Oh, there we go. Yes, down you go. Yay. Wonderful. There is no time that you will see a zebra looking as happy as when they're doing that, rolling around in the dust and the dirt. And I think for them it just feels wonderful. I know that horses do it as well. It just scratches all of those hard to reach places, and also that layer of dust and sand and grit makes it a little bit harder for parasites to make their way in. Might even dislodge a few along the way, whether it be mites or ticks. And we're going to see more and more of these sorts of scenes as the drought continues. Looks like it is a duo of stallions, so a bachelor herd. And that's relatively common to see, the young male zebra that have left the herd and joined together to just basically it's a combination of safety and numbers, and that combined with the fact that they have a sparring partner. The older zebra can teach them some fighting tricks, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and they get to practice the skills that they will eventually need in a serious battle in order to acquire their first female to add to their harem. Tony was wondering about whether or not the zebra looks fat to anyone else, or if it is just them. I think, Tony, you must have been referring to not this gentleman that we're looking at, but let's go forward a little bit and have a look, because I might be wrong. It might not have been two stallions, although I don't think so. Let's just go forward quickly, have a look and see if Our other friend will allow us a glance under his tail, his or her tail. No, definitely 2 stallions. So Tony, you are absolutely right, of course, in that all zebra look somewhat, I think, corpulent is a suitable word. They always do look like they've got very round, very healthily fed bellies. The reason for that, of course, is that they are hindgut fermenters. Unlike the other antelope species that are ruminants, just like cows, so they have 4 stomachs, a zebra only has 1 stomach and does most of its digesting in its intestines. So the bacteria within the gut working exceptionally hard to process all of the plant material and help the animal break it down. The end result, of course, is that zebra have rather large tummies due to all of the gases secreted by the bacteria. And the other end result of that, of course, is zebra tends to be somewhat flatulent, more flatulent than most of the other animals out here. There you go. Every now and again, as they trot away, you might even be treated to the sound effects of their pyrotechnic digestion process. I have once before seen a zebra release some of that gas and actually get such a fright that it went galloping for a good 500 meters before it stopped and realized that it was responsible for the noise that had terrified it. Interesting creatures. The best way, of course, to have a look, you'll never be able to tell if a zebra is underweight or unwell, just because that belly is always so rounded due to the gas. But the best way to actually judge the condition of a zebra, or at least to know if a zebra is particularly ill, is by looking at the condition of the mane. If the mane starts to flop over to the side, that is when you know that a zebra is particularly unwell. In this case, 2 large, healthy, somewhat flatulent zebra stallions. Wildest Prime, you were wondering a little bit about the zebra's cryptic camouflage and the nature of the stripes. I'm going to start this off. I'm going to sort of put a caveat to what I'm going to say. Now, the disruptive nature of the stripes is one of the functions behind them. Now, there's a lot of research that suggests recently that it is mostly disruptive because of the way that our human eye sees. But for a lot of the other predators, it doesn't work all that well. But yes, the black and white stripes do seem really obvious to us in the way that we see, although I promise you, once that zebra goes a little bit further into the bushes, or if you've got a number of different zebra grouped together in a herd, as you typically find them, you'll find that they start to become very indistinct. It's very difficult to sort of pick out one animal from the other. So that is the sort of the disruptive nature of the stripes, bearing in mind as well that predators do not see as much color as we do. So they see mainly in grayscale with a little bit of color every sort of here and there, but not nearly as vibrantly as we see the colors. So it does work to an extent. However, as I said, there's a lot of research to suggest that it is for other purposes. One is there's a theory that it assists with thermoregulation, one that I question highly. I don't think that makes a great deal of sense, but essentially that the black stripe heats up faster than the white stripes, and that the air currents that are caused by the movement of hot air and cold air help to cool the zebra down. The other largely dominant theory is that the stripes actually act as basically interference with insect landing gear, or landing vision. So, for example, in areas where there are tsetse flies, you'll find that zebra have far fewer tsetse flies than any of the other animals of a similar size. So the theory is that the stripes work well to do that. An interesting thought Because, of course, stripes must have a purpose. Yet why is it that zebra are the only general game species to utilize it as a sort of as a source of coloration? What is it that makes the black and white stripes? Right, let's go back over to James and see what he's up to.
The elephant absconded, everybody, but there is a really nice picture of what I think is a juvenile crested barbet. I definitely know it's a crested barbet, but I think it's a juvenile one, and I think he was probably born in a tree hole in this long dead knobthorn tree. They're kind of juvenile birds, you can tell, because they're scruffy, but the thing with the crested barbet is that they're always kind of scruffy. But aren't those pretty colours juxtaposed by the blue behind him and the grey of the dead tree? Lovely oranges and reds and yellows and blacks and whites. And he, like most frugivores or fruitarians out here, is going in for a tough time as we go to the winter. He'll have to supplement his diet with whatever invertebrates he can find. So largely he would eat fruits with that heavy bill of his, but he can, of course, look at him, he can, of course, eat insects, and that heavy beak is also used to dig holes in trees. He's one of the few species of bird, like the woodpeckers, that's able to dig his own tree holes to live in. He's a very special little fellow. You can see there is a bit of a breeze blowing. Still quite a chilly breeze. I'm not sure if there's a front coming through, if perhaps there's one around Johannesburg on the high veld that's just kind of filtering down into the low veld where we are. For those of you who are new viewers, low veld we talk about is the lowland area, and that's about 450 meters above sea level, maybe less, 300 meters above sea level, so about 1,000 feet, all the way up to probably about 800 meters above sea level, which would be about 2,500 feet above sea level. That's what we call the lowlands here. Then the high veld, the highlands, up the escarpment towards Johannesburg, and that can be anywhere up to 2,000 meters. That's more than a mile and a half almost above sea level. So that's pretty high up. Right, on we go. And this is wonderful. Kat, you say that you are able to now hear from our drives which birds are calling in the background. I think that's brilliant, Kat. And I think it's one of the most satisfying things in the world when that starts to happen. I remember when it started to happen for me, when I first started to be able to identify a bird call, and I remember being extremely satisfied with myself. And that particular bird, let's close that down, that particular bird, the crested barbet, goes... There's a squirrel hiding in this tree. There. You see it there? Yeah. There's a little tree squirrel in a very lovely tamboti tree. And this tree, we don't get a lot of autumnal colors in this part of the world. No, he's hiding from us. Can you see him? Not really. He's in there somewhere. We don't get a lot of autumnal colours in this part of the world, like I say, but the tamboti tree is one of the trees that makes lovely maroons and golds all together as the winter progresses. Highly toxic, eating it or burning it to cook your meat. Now Samuel is walking through the drainage line over here, drainage line being a dry river bed. Sorry, that means coming a crapper on the bottom of the...
Who are you calling?
No one's calling anyone, James? On a bird-themed drive, we have a little bee-eater. My apologies, I don't seem to have a functioning earpiece at all. I had absolutely no idea that you were on the back of the vehicle with us, Nevertheless, you are more than welcome to come and join us. And we have the little bee eater, as you can see, with its bright yellow and green colouring. Now, I think I might have to do some patchwork to the radio. Let me just see if I can't figure out where this problem lies.
So I think the signal problems are probably to do with the fact that the pressure is quite low at the moment, and that seems to affect our signal. So sorry about that. We might be chipping and changing between the two of us. Anyway, like I was saying, those dogs, I don't know where they've gone to. We're going to head down towards the south. They could easily have crossed the road sometime during the course of the morning, and yeah, we could easily have missed the tracks. So let's pop down to Treehouse Dam and see if they haven't popped out there. Sam, of course, I don't know if you were on drive this morning, but Sam had those drag marks of an impala being dragged along by a hyena. He then did find the impala after drive with Steph, and we assumed that it had been stolen. Well, we didn't really know who the hyenas had stolen that impala from, but I'm beginning to think that it's quite likely. What was it? Okay, so there are lion tracks coming down into this area as well. Super tracker is VM, as well as being a very good cameraman. I've lost my train of thought now completely. Dogs come and get. Oh, perhaps it could well be that the hyena stole that impala from the wild dogs this morning. Maybe that happened. So let's head down to the south there. I think the original thought was that the dogs had come from the north. It was entirely possible they came from the south. There's a decent squirrel sighting for us here. He's on the tree, about to climb up it. There he is. Now, of course, everything from a tree squirrel to a woodpecker to a blue-headed tree agama, which is a lizard, knows exactly which side of the tree to hide. But the squirrel is keeping an eye on us. And that is the only native species of squirrel that we get out here. In this particular area, we get the ground squirrel up into the Kalahari, which is a very dry region in the high northwestern reaches of South Africa. And we get a European grey squirrel in Cape Town, but that's an import, which the Cape Townians love very much, but of course which is a menace to local wildlife. Good. They must always have a good tree squirrel sighting every day, yeah? Good for the soul. Do you agree? Good. Impala and tree squirrel, one sighting a day. So, there are some very fresh lion tracks going down this road, on top of the tracks from this morning. John, you're on Twitter, and you are wondering if the full moon affects the animals here. Really? But diurnal hunters like wild dogs and cheetah, they
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
Right, so unfortunately it seems as though WildEarth Sunset Safari at the moment is beset by gremlins. And they have inhabited my earpiece and they have quite possibly taken over Jigger completely at some point this afternoon, since James appears to have disappeared off your screens and I have absolutely no idea what poor Rebecca is trying to say to me. So I'm wearing an earpiece, but actually I might as well just take it out because I have no idea. And all forms of communication will have to come to me through the eminently capable Brian, who will, through a combination of sign language and just actual speaking, tell me exactly what it is I need to do and where to go. And so on we continue. Unfortunately, now usually when something like this occurs, it's usually this device, it's usually the earpiece that we wear in our ears. Now I've checked mine, it is functioning properly, so it is not the earpiece. It is something else in this strange combination of multiple cables that appears to be playing havoc with our sound. So whilst we could continue all day chattering away, what that means is that I might never know whether or not we're live, as happened earlier, and I won't be able to, most importantly, I won't be able to hear your questions and your comments. The interactivity aspect of the drive is one of the most vital. Luckily for us, our technical genius, Eugene, will be on his way in order to help sort through the reasons behind our current predicament. I'm sure we will be, well, we at least will be up and running relatively shortly. As to poor Jigger and James and Liam, remains to be seen what the solution is for them. Oh, I do actually have an update for you, just by the way, and that is that Tsukani, the female leopard that we were searching for this afternoon, she's actually crossed back onto Simbambili. Now, from what we can tell from her current movements, that seems to be where she is sort of establishing or thinking about establishing a territory. That being said, I was chatting to Brent earlier and he tells me that apparently she pops up on Londolozi every now and again, which is where, of course, her mother's original, or part of her mother's original territory used to be. So she was probably raised there as a cub. So it's a very familiar area. So it remains to be seen if she decides to adopt that particular section of Londolozi where her mother's territory used to be, basically inherit it, or whether or not she's actually going to create her own new territory in the top northwestern corner of the reserve. Now, for those of you watching, please bear with us. We may have to go back to our tech loop at some point just so that I can get some of the cabling fixed. Oh, that's not Brian, that's the Game Drive comms. So we're getting a bit of a behind the scenes tour, and in fact you might even be seeing a little bit of the building works that are currently in place. Now, some of you are relatively familiar with the setup of our camp. We used to have the parking lot for these vehicles right outside, or within the sort of the driveway of our camp. That has now moved into a completely different section of the camp, where I have to say the mechanic, or the technique behind parking the cars has now become something of an art form. Amanda, a big wave. Perhaps you would like, perhaps, maybe not. And here we have arrived. As you can see, there is a veritable parking lot of cars, as well as the current building processes happening over here.
Take a look.
And I'm going to say farewell for now. Please stick with us and we'll catch up with you very soon. We should be up and running shortly.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us. Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back in the vehicle with us.
Would you look at that? I told you it was going to be a quick fix, and lo and behold, it was indeed. Nobody is quite entirely sure what the quick fix was, because it sort of just fixed itself, but we're going to go work on the assumption that it is now working perfectly, and Brian will just tell me otherwise if he feels as though I am no longer listening to any direction, and if I am in fact directionless. Now, apparently poor James, before he was viciously attacked by gremlins, was busy answering a question about whether or not the animals are affected by a full moon, and that was a question from John. The answer is yes, they are. They're not affected in any kind of major gravitational or spiritual sense or anything like that, but it does play an enormous role in their lives, because a full moon produces enough light for the animals to be able to see almost as though it is daylight. What you'll find is that very often wild dogs and cheetah, for example, the dominant diurnal, not dominant, but mainly diurnal predators, can actually operate during a full moon night, in the middle of the night. This is what I've been trying to find you to show you. Terribly sweet. I know you were watching them with James this morning. I was trying to find this little one for you. Oh, it's such a tricky spot. Just see if we are in the right gap here, although it's just moved behind Mom. Here we go. Hello, little one. John, sorry, I will come back to your question. That's just adorable. Here we go. Another sweet baby for our sunset safari. Currently using Mom as a scratching post. Baby giraffe are particularly cute. Yes, little one. You're making sure you scratch the side of your neck there. It's such a perfect example, or perfect nice comparison, in order to see the sort of the disproportionate nature of a baby giraffe, and why in fact it is structured that way. Not just to make it easier to scratch against Mom, but it also allows the baby to suckle from the mother. The neck is slightly shorter than it would be on an adult giraffe in proportion to its body size, whilst the legs look unnaturally long. So it allows the baby giraffe to bend beneath the mother to get to the nipples with sort of minimal difficulty, and yet at the same time, it's so cute. Oh, you're just terribly itchy, little one, and those oxpeckers won't leave you alone. Oh, it's still got its little umbilical cord. This is such a new baby. That, if you look carefully, there you can see the umbilical cord hasn't snapped off yet. It hasn't dried and fallen off. The little one reaching down underneath its belly, that's probably actually one of the things that's causing a bit of itchiness. And that usually dries up and falls off in about a month, usually 2 weeks, but up to a month in baby giraffe. So this little one is definitely under a month old. I would say only maybe 3 at the most. It's very curious, this little baby. Really starting to nibble on leaves, actually. I know that you can't quite see it from your vantage point, but it's actually nibbling at leaves, and not nearly weaned, but nibbling at leaves. But where I was going with that was actually Gail's question about whether or not giraffe make any sounds. I'm going to shuffle forward a little bit as I answer that, in order to give you a slightly different perspective on it. That's probably about as good as we're going to get without scaring it away at all. So, Gail, the answer is they don't make sounds that human beings can hear generally. I have heard a sort of coughing, grunting sound from a giraffe before, but that is not the norm. And it's only recently that there's a suggestion, or there's research showing that giraffe can actually vocally communicate with each other, just not in the same way most animals do, and sort of similar to elephants in that it's a frequency that people cannot hear, as human beings cannot hear, so sort of a sub-frequency, almost like the rumble of elephants. And research is still ongoing into that particular method of communication. Look at those little spots, lots of white on this baby. Might fill out in time, but nevertheless that spot pattern will stay constant for the rest of its life. Shame. You can see already that just in the corner of that little one's eye as it leans forward, there's a tick that's already managed to grab hold. Look at that, that's incredible. Such a young giraffe and already starting to nibble on leaves. Makes me think it might be a little bit older than I thought it was originally, although that umbilical cord suggests otherwise. Perhaps not quite displaying the same level. There you go. Still, I mean, that's definitely still very well attached. So perhaps in this case it just took a bit longer than normal. Still a tiny one. Not quite displaying the same nimble lip technique that the adults display whilst eating. And Nigel, you were wondering, and I think it's a question that's always on everybody's mind as we enter into our dry season after an extended dry summer. We now go further and further into the effects of the drought. Nigel was wondering how giraffe cope with the lack of vegetation during the dry season and during the drought. And the answer is, luckily for them, as browsers, they will have a little bit more access to nutrients than, for example, something like a bulk grazer, a buffalo or the zebra. It means that the trees that are capable of reaching below the surface of the soil and down below to the underground water, they will be bringing up water from deep beneath the surface. And luckily, or the way that the wildlife and the ecosystem is adapted, a great deal of the trees are evergreen in this particular area. So not all of the trees will lose their leaves for an extended period of time. So the giraffe will have something to eat. It's one of the reasons why giraffe are adapted and capable of living in almost desert conditions. So, for example, throughout parts of Namibia, where there's very little food, they are quite happy to survive there. I'm hoping as Mom walks towards us, there we go, that she might bring little one behind her. In general, though, the babies tend to stay quite a far distance from their mothers. It's an interesting technique. Basically, the moms trying not to draw attention to their little ones. It's one of the reasons why there's often been this myth of, or this belief that giraffe give birth to twins. They do, but very, very seldom. And it's more because little youngsters have become separated from their mothers, and therefore it looks like one mom actually has two babies when in fact it belongs to another mother. And speaking of babies, Andreen, you were wondering about how tall a baby giraffe is when it is born, and the answer is quite impressively tall. About, this is a guess now, just from what I've seen of newborn giraffes, I would guess at around, how tall am I? 1'6", probably around my height actually, so about 5'7", or 168 in centimeters. But I'll double check that for you, Andreen, because I'm not 100% sure. I'm only working off, I haven't ever had the chance to stand right up close to a baby giraffe. I know, oh, there we go, yes, that's about right. Weighing 100 kilograms, so 220 pounds at birth, so quite a significant baby in terms of weight. and measuring 1.5 meters at the shoulder with an extra probably about, so close to 2 meters in height, 6 feet in height, so even taller than I am at birth, which is incredible when you think about it. And then, of course, there's the way in which a baby giraffe enters the world, which is a 2-meter drop because mom does not lie down to give birth. She will. Oh, you can hear some hammering from our building site happening over there. Now, Brooklyn, you were wondering on the subject of that little umbilical cord. Brooklyn was wondering, does that umbilical cord not come off straight away after birth? And Brooklyn, the answer is no, it doesn't. Now, we see it particularly prominently in giraffe because the mothers don't tend to reach down and to nibble it away. In a lot of the newborn cubs, like leopard cubs and lion cubs, you might only see just a little bit of that umbilical cord before it moves away. But for some reason in giraffe, more so than any other animal, that umbilical cord stays in place for a long time. And I don't know whether it's because the little one can't reach its head underneath its belly to lick it away, or whether mom just doesn't do as good a job. Oh, look, she's coming to check up on the baby, make sure that it's still safe. So sweet. Unfortunately, I think this is the best view that I can get for you. I will go forward ever so slightly. That might help a little bit, but that's about as clear as it's going to get. Now, Paul was wondering about, we saw the zebra earlier with its unique stripe pattern, and we spoke about the unique spot pattern of the giraffe. Paul, we were just wondering whether or not giraffe babies imprint on their mother's spot patterns in the same way that zebra babies imprint on their mother's stripe pattern. And goodness me, I could not get that sentence out in the right way, but you know what I mean. And the answer is it's far more to do with smell than anything else. That's what really enforces that imprinting process. And it doesn't happen all that quickly. So baby zebras, I was always taught that they imprint on the stripe pattern of the shoulder of the mom, that's the sort of the right eye level for a zebra foal. Now, having been to the Kruger and recently and witnessed a baby zebra following a wildebeest herd because it thought that it was mom, I've started to doubt the legitimacy of the imprinting process, or at least the speed at which the imprinting process is meant to occur. So it does take some time. It's an interesting question, and you might find, I'm not discounting, Paul, the possibility that they do imprint partially by sight on their mother's spot patterns. Now, at the moment, it's just the two of them. Earlier on this afternoon, I did see a large male wandering through with this group, or with this pair. But Darlene was wondering on a sort of on a broader level, will a giraffe move about with other animals, like the way that we often see zebra and wildebeest together, or baboons or impala? Not something that we see all that commonly here, but is regularly seen around river areas. And the answer is yes. So a collection of animals of different species is known as an aggregation. I'm going to try, now that this little one's moved, I'm going to try go forward a little bit. That is going to be our best view for now. So a collection of different animal species is an aggregation, and it is a really useful way of having several pairs of ears and several pairs of eyes. And the answer is yes. You do often see, for example, kudu and giraffe browsing together, or impala and giraffe feeding next to each other. It's just a little extra bit of safety and security. That baby still hasn't quite got used to the oxpecker idea. Also, something's making it terribly itchy. And as our giraffe pair disappears off, Lynn, you were wondering we were speaking about that long drop that a baby giraffe has to face in its first few moments of life. You were wondering if a baby giraffe could ever break its neck. I've never heard of it happening. It's not impossible, but generally, much like a lot of very young animals, they tend to be a bit more, those bones aren't quite as fused solid. There's a lot of cartilage there, so it isn't quite as damaging as it might usually, that kind of fall, as it would be to an adult giraffe. So it shows that resilience that all baby animals, including baby humans, very often show. Well, it seems as though Jigger unfortunately not back up and running, but James is now out on foot, so let's see what he's going to find for you whilst walking.
Now, we have not tipped the Land Rover over, oh no. We are actually now on foot because Jigger was just misbehaving, recalcitrant old bag that she is. Anyway, Wiam is low angle in on an almost invisible butterfly called a blue pansy, only visible as a blue pansy from the top when it opens its wings. Now, this time of year, for me, always feels slightly, well, it's tinged with a sense of nostalgia, I guess. I don't know if any of you remember that old British comedy show called Last of the Summer Wine. Very nice title for a fairly poor show. But this kind of time of year gives me that feeling of nostalgia when the butterflies are starting to kind of give up. They're all looking a little bit ropey, their scales have come off, their colours are a little bit duller as we go into the autumn and we look forward or look into the winter. I'm not sure how much many of us look forward to the winter. So Wiam, can you still see it? I actually cannot see this butterfly anymore. What I'm going to do is try and move my hand or my stick into the region where it is and see if it won't open its wings. Am I anywhere close to it?
More, the other side of that stick.
Other side of which stick? This stick?
A big grey stick in the middle.
There it goes. So come and look here quickly, everybody. It'll open its wings for us a little bit now. There it is. Oh, there. It's brilliant because as soon as it folds its wings, it's completely invisible. Here it is. There. Anyway, what I'm going to ask Wiam to do? Well, leave that blue pansy to be on his own. He doesn't want to be with us anymore. No, let's leave him. What I'm going to ask Wiam to do is, as we walk over these clearings, which are turning from that lovely green colour that they were at the sort of height, if you like, of that late wet season that we have, I'm going to ask him to run a low angle shot through the grass here. And I want you to get an impression of that feeling that I'm getting of a nostalgia for a summer. Oh dear, Wiam's got himself attached to a tree. There, he's out. Of that feeling of nostalgia for a summer past as we go into autumn. All the leaves changing, and it's not a. I mean, I don't. Maybe I'm talking nonsense to most of you, but it's not a feeling of sadness so much as a feeling, yeah, I guess, of nostalgia that the summer, the life of the summer, is slowly going into dormancy as we prepare for the winter. And I imagine for those of you in much colder parts of the world, that feeling must be all the greater when you go into autumn. There's one of the last of the monarch butterflies, many of which will be very familiar to you if you're from the United States. There he is. Easily confused with the common diadem female, at least male, female, common diadem female, which looks exactly the same, but for the fact, if you look at that one, it's quite a nice opportunity to see that it's got 3 or 4 spots on the hind wing there. And on the diadem there's only 1 spot, and it's just sucking the last bits of nectar out of what is a fairly spiky sedge. It's not even much of a flower. The monarch's particularly good at surviving. There we go. And Tony, if you promise to refer to these things by the correct name next time around, we can absolutely look at some. You want to look at some ant mounds. I'm assuming you mean termite mounds, we can definitely look at that. We might find an ant mound. Remember that an ant is not related to a termite in the slightest. An ant is, well, it's part of a different order. It's actually related to bees and to wasps, whereas a termite is much more closely related to the sort of dreadful organism that is the cockroach. But let's come here. Here's one over here, Tony. We'll go and have a look at this one. And this one is not particularly well used, I don't think. But come over here and have a look, Tony. Tony, just tell me if I'm casting aspersions on you here. I'm assuming that you mean a termite mound, but you might mean an ant mound, in which case we'll try and find you an ant mound. But this is a termite mound, and this one is closed up for the winter. We found a very active one this morning being closed up, and I know that this one is relatively active because of the white bits of bird droppings thereupon, which means that... Oh, Tony, you do mean ants and not termites. We'll try and find you an ant mound. Just quickly with this one, a lot of these active termite mounds, which this one is active, have been closed up for much of the winter. They'll open up again, but as it gets a bit cooler, they'll open these close them up. And the birds have been here relieving themselves, obviously. And there's no grass on the mound, and that's how we've got an idea that it is probably an active one. Now, an active ant mound for you, Tony, is going to be much more difficult to find. But we are with Stefan the Mystic Boer, and he is very good at finding the mounds, especially of Polyrhynchus the ant. So we might be lucky with a Polyrhynchus ant, and we might find her. Come along, Vian. Do not tarry down there. Right, in the meantime, while I remove this spiky thing from my foot, let's head across to Jamie. She's got an elephant, and we'll try and find you an ant mound.
There we go. What a nice way to continue our sunset safari, but with this lovely Ellie bull on his way to the dam for a drink. I was actually planning on showing you some monkeys, and we do have a school class a little bit later, so I'm hoping that those monkeys are going to stick around for a moment for the kids to have a look. Let's go forward a little bit so we can see them. I don't want to give up my position just yet. Luckily, we've got a camera with some incredible zooming capabilities. We're just going to sit here for the moment. I'm going to try and relocate the monkeys I was looking for. In the meantime, our gentleman here having a lovely drink. Usual elephant technique of stretching his trunk out as far as possible away from the edge of the water so that he doesn't have to drink some mud-sullied water. Unfortunately for him, that is not really how we would describe this particular waterhole, especially not with a buffalo bull in residence. Clearly enjoying his afternoon wallowing. Having a long drink. And each trunk full of water for a bull of this size would be anywhere in the region from about 10 to 12 litres of water in one go, just one trunk full. Using it as an instrument to get the water from the pan to his mouth without having to go head first into it. Oh, buffalo. Up you get, buffalo. It was a very lazy and almost unnecessary chasing of that buffalo bull that elephant just did. Oh, he's going for the next one. This is my pan, and I don't plan on sharing it. The elephants, as wonderful as they are and as intelligent as they are, they can be somewhat irascible at times. They don't always tolerate the company of other animal species. Of course, at the moment, it is competition for water, although I'm not even sure he really wanted to drink there. He just sort of wanted to chase that buffalo away, show it who was boss. And it's very often young elephant bulls like this that you see that kind of behavior from. It's like they need to prove to the world that they're big and strong. Because in the elephant world, they're not really the top of the food chain, so to speak, just yet. He's a young bull. He's probably only just left the herd. So there's something of an ego involved in this whole process as well. Oh no, he wanted the fresher, cleaner water. Sorry, boy. Am I being unfair there? He has come to have a drink at where the water comes out of the pipe. This is a dam that is pumped. So in this time of drought, with all of the other dams being almost completely dry, it provides the animals with a very necessary source of water. But what I was saying earlier still holds true. Young elephant bulls do occasionally chase things to make themselves feel better about themselves. That makes sense, particularly since they can't really throw their weight around in the elephant world. They have to do it where all the other animals are concerned. This is a lovely view. It's not often that we really sit quite a distance from elephants and just observe their behavior. While I've been sitting here, I've still been trying to work out where on earth that female monkey went. She had a tiny, tiny little baby, and they got such a fright as I came round the corner that she shot up one of the knob thorns, and I just can't quite figure out where she is. So bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to have a look with my binoculars while we watch this elephant. Unless she managed to sneak past me and scamper away, which I think she might have done, because the rest of the monkeys have also hightailed it out of here at a very rapid pace. Well, in that case, let's go around and have a slightly closer look at our elephant boy. What's he looking at? No, he's going to go off down into the dam again. He just looks as though he's in a bad mood today. Isn't that odd head shake? And I don't mean with us. He's sort of restless, can't quite pick his drinking spot, irritated by the birds that are fluttering around. He just looks as though he's having a bad elephant day. Let's go around, see as he starts to move down. He might even chase those buffalo again. Oh, no, more to drink. And in a bad mood, I don't mean that he's not going to be grumpy or aggressive with us. He just looks slightly disconcerted with life. And that's quite common with young elephants, especially when they are of this age. He's probably only just left the herd in the last 2 or 3 years. And as a result, he feels quite unsettled. You can imagine what it must be like to be a young bull elephant, leaving the safety and security of a herd, the protection you've always known, and now all of a sudden you've got to face the big, wide and scary world. Luckily, of course, they have the enormous advantage of being a good 4 to 5 tons in weight, which does help such matters. Quite a nice, beautiful afternoon sunlight. Sometimes it's nice just to enjoy the peace of an afternoon. he's going to wander off. It's interesting how in the 2 weeks since I was last here, just watching the elephants' behavior, they've almost completely stopped feeding on grass. He might have a little bit now, but when I left they were eating grass almost exclusively. It was just after the rains and the grasses had sprung up spectacularly. And now it seems as though that breeding herd that I saw yesterday was focusing on the trees again. In this area, even now, he's not really grasping trunkfuls of the grass. It's just the odd strand of it. And it's interesting. And it's something we're going to see more and more as we go into the drought season. The fact that the elephants will have to rely almost entirely on trees in the future. Relatively short tusks. Of course, you cannot gauge an elephant's age based on the length or lack of their tusks. Each individual elephant's genes will determine just how big their tusks are going to get. Some elephants are born with larger tusks than others. Some are born without tusks at all. That is relatively rare in a wild population. Generally, though, the tusks of the males are much, much thicker than those of the females. Don't disappear, boy. The kids are about to jump on the back of the safari vehicle. Come on. Come back. It's not going to happen. He's going to vanish before the kids get here. What a pity. Oh well, there's plenty of other things to show them. We're going to be having a group of 6 to 7-year-olds this afternoon. For them this morning, the beginning of their school day. Well, at least we've got some buffalo to show them. And hopefully some monkeys if I can find them again, although they appear to have vanished completely. Oh no, hold on. I think I see some monkey movement. And while we wait for the kids to come and join us and I get a better position for the buffalo and the monkeys, let's go across to James, who's got something very interesting.
Hello everybody, welcome to our little bushwalk that we're doing this afternoon, and I know that you're studying butterflies, and this is a bit of a sad state of affairs for this butterfly, which has died. But nothing out here in the wild goes to waste, and you can see the butterfly is being eaten by ants. And we had another viewer called Tony who wanted to see some ants. Well, here they are. I'm not sure what kind of ants they are, but they are carnivorous, which means they like to eat meat, and this butterfly is good meat for the ants to eat. I'm just going to pick him up. You can see that the ants have already eaten his body away. All that's left are his wings. And unfortunately, I think he's what we call an African joker. That's the kind of butterfly that he is. And we'll try and find you a living one. But this one is no longer. And the ants are now moving off. They're going back to their nest, where they'll go down underground as the sun starts to set. Anyway, that's a sad state for that butterfly to be in. My name is James. It's lovely to have you on our little walk today. We're going to look for the smaller things. If we do find some big stuff, well, that's great too. But we'll try and find some butterfly, and we'll try and find some birds and some tracks. And you all, of course, sitting at the Five Oaks Elementary School, and it's great to have you along with us. Come on a little adventure on foot here in the wilderness of the Kruger National Park. I don't know if Jamie told you about the Kruger National Park, but it's a wonderful, wonderful special place that we in South Africa love very much. a bit like you in the United States, like the Yellowstone National Park, except the Kruger National Park is almost 3 times bigger than Yellowstone National Park, if you can believe it. So it's a massive, massive piece of land. And there are lots and lots of animals. You've seen an elephant and a buffalo, and if you look around us here, you can see all sorts of grasses and trees, and the flowers, unfortunately, now that we're going into autumn, are starting to kind of wither away and die as we go into the winter. But that's okay. It's beautiful here at any time of year. Hello, Benjamin. A very good question from you as to why the butterfly died. Well, Benjamin, butterflies, you know, don't live very long. They probably only live for about 2 or 3 days, some of them. Some of them live a bit longer, but often not much longer than 2 or 3 days. And because they only live for 2 or 3 days, after a while they get old. They get old very quickly, and then they die. So, Benjamin, that's what I think happened to that butterfly. And you can see how his body was eaten away. Come, let's have a look over here. On camera today is Viam, and Viam is a very experienced fellow when it comes to the bushveld. Look at what we found here. Viam, it looks like ice cream. Can you see this ice cream here with honey on it? I'm not sure I'd eat that though, everybody. That is a fungus, like a mushroom, that is growing out of this dead tree. And you know what kind of fungus I think this is. If I'm not mistaken, what we're sitting on here, I'm going to break a piece off over here. There we go. Have a look here. We're sitting here, everybody, on a termite mound, and the termites, you know what termites are in the eastern United States, because you get many of them there, and they like to eat your houses. Here, we don't really build with wood, so they don't eat our houses too much. But they do live in great abundance, lots and lots of termites, millions of them. And this particular termite that makes the mounds, the very famous castles of clay that Africa is very famous for, they grow fungus gardens in the same way that some of your parents will keep a garden, grow a garden. So these termites do the same thing. They plant this fungus, and I think that's what this is. They plant this special fungus and they eat it. We wouldn't eat it, even though it looks like ice cream. It's probably not very good. Doesn't smell too bad. It smells like mushrooms. A fungus is a mushroom, and the termites use this to help them digest the dead wood that they collect from all around here. The termites are very, very good at collecting all of the dead stuff around here, and they basically clean up the bush for us, and they use this fungus to help them to eat the bush that they eat. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, would you like to eat that?
No, I'm full.
Okay, good. Well done. You've just had lunch. Okay, on we go. Chloe, you want to know how far the safari is. I'm assuming you're asking me how far we're going to go. Well, it just depends. You know, some days when you're on foot, you can walk for 2 or 3 hours in a tiny little area like you can see over here. And you'll find lots and lots to see and lots to talk about for 2 or 3 hours in a very small area. Then some days you'll want to track something. So maybe you want to track an elephant or a lion or something like that. And elephants and lions can move huge distances. Maybe they'll move 10 miles in a night, and you'd probably follow them for a night. Someone very special has found something, I suspect, very special. What have you got there? Mystic Boer? Ooh, this is very interesting here. Now, we're going to look up on the tree there. Addison, you were asking about whether termites have a nest. Well, that was their nest, Addison. That's where they live. It's like a great big block of flats. Now, look in the tree there. There are lots of different kinds of colors of birds, but they're actually the same bird. They are called plum-coloured starlings or violet-backed starlings. And what they're doing, there's so many of them in that tree because we're going towards the winter. And they don't like the cold, those birds. Just like many of the birds in your area will be returning from where they spent the winter. These ones are now what we call massing. It means they're grouping together, getting ready to go overseas. There they go. They don't like the winter, so they go to where it's always summertime. And that's called migrating, everybody. That's what the birds do. Some birds will stay here all year round, but many of them will go away to where it gets to be summer. Now, I know you're going into spring and into summer soon in the eastern United States. Here, of course, in South Africa, we're going into winter because we're in the southern hemisphere of the world, which means everything's a little bit different here. Everything's a bit opposite from where you are. So those guys are going to go up into north of Africa, where it's nice and warm. Carly, you want to know how you get to South Africa. Well, from where you are, Carly, you would get on a plane from Virginia Beach. I suspect you'd either drive to Washington, D.C., or you'd get on a plane to Washington, D.C., or you'd get on a plane to Atlanta, Georgia, and then you'd have to have your pajamas with you, and you'd have to have a big suitcase, and you'd fly for a long time over the Atlantic Ocean. And it would probably take you about 13 or 14 hours from Atlanta, and if you came from Washington or New York, it'd take you about 11 hours, I think, and then you'd land in South Africa. But you have to fly over the Atlantic Ocean, all the way across Namibia, a special country called Namibia, then across Botswana, and then across Zimbabwe, and down into South Africa. So that's how it would take you a long time. But I do hope that you manage to come out here, because it's a very, very special part of the world for us to be in. Let's go and find out what Jamie's found, and we'll keep going along here.
And good afternoon, or in your case, good morning to the pupils of Miss Williams and Mrs. Smead, their first grade class of White Oaks Elementary School. And welcome to the driving portion of this afternoon's Sunset Safari. Now, my name is Jamie, and I drive the car and show you all the animals, and behind me sits a very talented gentleman known as Brian. Now, if you look very carefully, you might even see another character who is very, very fond of wearing face paint. Now, that is the thumb. And the thumb today is dressed up as a very special bird known as a red-billed buffalo weaver. Hopefully we can find you an actual red-billed buffalo weaver at some point today, but at the moment you can all wave hello to the thumb and his face painting of the buffalo weaver. We're driving along on the roads in the middle of South Africa in a place that's home to all kinds of wonderful animals like lions and leopards, buffalo, and something smells very funny. Do you smell something very funny, Brian?
I do indeed.
I smell something very funny. I don't think you guys all the way over there can smell it. And that is the reason why I'm smelling something funny. Now, what on earth could that be? And why is it on my bonnet? Definitely smells very strange. Whoopsie, that's my head. You don't want my head in the way. Right, so shall we have a closer look at this strange smelling thing? And let's see if you can help me figure out what it is. Whoop. And don't forget, you guys are welcome to send through your questions and anything that you want to tell us or want to say. We get it through straight away through this earpiece that I'm wearing in my ear. So, let's grab this smelly thing. It's heavy, and it's big, and this is a pile of poo. Now, what do you suppose made a pile of poo that is that big? Because it certainly wasn't me, and it definitely wasn't Brian. Must be something even larger. Now, in order to investigate this, we're going to have to break open the poo. And yes, I know it might seem disgusting, but let's break open the poo and have a look inside, because it's going to tell us so much about this particular animal. And it smells very fresh, and it smells very grassy. And if you look carefully, I'm going to take this half away, and we're going to look at this half. I'm going to throw that onto the ground. Have a look in here. This is a bit gross. Are you guys grossed yet? Grossed out yet? Look at that. What does that look like to you? Bits of grass, maybe? So it's an animal that eats grass. But there's something else here too. There's bits of leaves as well. So, what particular animal are we going with here? Something big, eats grass, eats leaves, and leaves big piles of poo in the road. Shall we return the poo to the road? And I'm going to tell you why I'm going to put the poo back in the road in a moment. Oh, just one of, there we go. Yeah. Little bit gross. I won't tell anyone. Now, it's safe for me to touch that poo because it is the poo from an animal that eats only plants, so a herbivore's poo. But as soon as I get home, I'm still going to go and wash my hands. So, what do you guys think that was from? Definitely, just while we're here talking about poo and we seem to be stuck on the subject, just a reminder that you mustn't go playing with poo that you don't know where it came from. Not dogs or cats or anything like that. But that one I know exactly where it came from, and in fact I know the gentleman who deposited it on the road. And I am going to go and wash my hands straight after I'm finished with this game drive. Oh, what animal do we think that came from? See if you can guess, and you can send through your answers to me. And let's see if you can tell me which animal that was. And I also want to know... oh, you guys are too clever for me. Too clever and too quick. You are absolutely right, Benjamin. Well done. It is an elephant. That was an elephant poo that he left in the middle of the road. Now, I have to tell you a secret. I put it on my car. The elephant didn't put it on my car. I put it on my car because I was driving along and I wanted to show it to you, but I still wanted to carry on driving, so I thought that seemed like the best place to put it. So well done, Benjamin, and to all of you that guessed that was an elephant, you are absolutely right. And an elephant is just one of the many animals. I hear that not only were you enjoying a demonstration of dung, but you're also all loving the presence of our extra special characters. So, if we're good, before the end of the drive, the thumb might decide, the thumb's a little bit shy, but the thumb might decide to make another appearance at some point. We just have to wait and see. Right, so Benjamin is observing very closely what's going on here. Well done, Benjamin. And Benjamin would like to know, as we go searching for lions and leopards and all kinds of things, why there is an antenna on our car. Benjamin, it's actually a fascinating thing because it's not just that antenna. You're looking, I think, at the thing in front that's doing this all the time. See it wobbling about? So what that's helping to do is that's helping to transmit the radio waves that we are getting through my earpiece. So what that allows me to do is that allows me to talk to somebody who passes my questions on, or your questions on to me. So that's what that antenna does, and it helps to keep it clear. And the reason we need that is because we've got so much fancy electronic equipment that shoots the signal up into the sky, bounces it off a tower, the tower bounces the signal back to a satellite all the way in England. So you guys all know where England is and how far away. I'm sure your teacher will show you on a map or a globe how far away that is. And then that satellite bounces the signal of our show all across the world. And what's amazing about that is that it only takes just a few seconds before you watch what's happening here in a game reserve. I am going to go off in search of maybe a real red-billed buffalo weaver, amongst other things. In the meantime, James has found something interesting and quite possibly a little bit gross.
Okay, live. Everybody, this is a little bit sad. It is a dead impala. This is the most common antelope that we get here, and I suppose could be compared, for example, with a common deer species that you might get in the United States there. But it died today. We don't really know why. We think maybe it was killed by wild dogs, which are the sort of African equivalent of a wolf, but then it was stolen from them. And I bet you can guess what stole it from them. That thieving animal called the spotted hyena. And it was stolen, and the hyena then came and had a meal here. Now, I know this can be a little bit sad to look at, It's not easy to look at sometimes, but remember, everything has to eat out here, and so it's perfectly fine. We know this impala wouldn't have felt any pain, it would have died quickly, and then it provided food for some of the other wonderful animals that we have out here. There are a couple of things I want to show you. The first thing is that an animal like this, which is called a herbivore, often does not have teeth on the top. You see that? Now remember, if you ever go into the wild and you find a dead animal, don't use your hands to touch it. You can use a stick or something. They've got bottom teeth, but they don't have top teeth. They've just got a pad at the top there, as they eat grass and they don't need too many teeth on the top. And then at the back of the mouth, they've got the teeth that they grind up. Well, I can't even see his teeth. They're so far at the back that they grind up the grass with. Then, the other very special part of this animal, and something that we don't see often, if we come over to this side here, this here is a very special thing, everybody, and our regular viewers will know what it is. It's called a fetlock gland. Now, fetlock is this joint here on any animal. So if you've seen a horse before, a cow, or a goat or a deer, this joint on the back legs is called the fetlock, and underneath this special black hair here is called a fetlock gland. And what that does is it makes a very special smell that the other impalas can smell, and when they're moving through thick bush, this is how they talk to each other, with this smell. Now, Benjamin, what a very, very good question. How on earth did we find this impala? Well, to be honest, I didn't find it. It was found by my friend Sam, and he found it earlier because he followed in an obvious mark where it had been dragged. So if you drag, for example, a sack full of sand along, well, then it will leave a mark in the ground, and that's exactly what the hyena did. I think it dragged it down here, didn't it, Viam? How did it come in here? Do you have any idea?
From up there.
I think it came from up here, everyone. And so the hyena didn't pick it up, it dragged it. And you can maybe see along here, you can see where something has been dragged along the ground, and the hyena dragged it down there, and this is where it thought was a good place to have its breakfast earlier this morning. So that was from this morning. It's a little bit sad, but everything in that impala will be used up. Slowly the vultures will come and eat it. Another hyena, I bet, will come past here tonight. And Kennedy, yes indeed it was the hyena that ate the impala, but it wasn't the hyena, we don't think, that killed the impala. We think that was a wild dog, which is the equivalent of an African wolf. It looks like a painted dog. If you can imagine painting a big dog like the size of a bull mastiff, if you can imagine painting a dog like that, brown and black and white, that's what a wild dog looks like. Let's see what else we can find through here. Oh, you know what we can find is this very special stuff here. Look along here, everyone. You can see very clearly where the impala was dragged. See? And then it turned round, the hyena went down into the drainage line there. Now let's just look over here. Now again, you mustn't go and do this in the wild if you are not very aware of what you're doing. Sorry, Derek, I didn't quite hear your question. I'm going to ask for it again. This is very special stuff. And Derek, while we look at what is elephant dung, this is from an elephant, like the elephant you just saw. You want to know if we get moose here? No, we don't. I suppose the equivalent size animal here would be something called an eland, but we don't find the eland in this particular area. They're further north of us in drier areas. Eland, at least a moose, is also very similar size to that buffalo that you saw earlier. With buffalo, at least moose, we only find in North America and in Northern Europe, not down in Africa. Now, I'm going to do something that you're going to think is very gross. But elephant dung, when it's been sitting for about a week or two, smells very like spices. Now remember, an elephant only eats grasses and leaves and twigs and fruits and that sort of thing, so it doesn't eat any meat, which means that its dung, if you leave it for the right amount of time, smells delicious. Do you want to smell some of it? Now, it doesn't come out like this. It comes out in a big ball, like a soccer ball, but I'm sure you've all heard of something called a dung beetle. The dung beetles open up the balls and spread them out on the ground like this. and then they lay their eggs inside this dung. The termites will also use it, and inside here there will be a whole lot of dung beetles, and they would have buried the dung underneath the ground, and they'll wait now for the next rain to come, which will probably only be in November, and then the dung beetles will come out of the ground and fly to find some new fresh dung. Let's go across to Jamie. She's got some special antelope to show you.
Have a look at this stunning creature. It's called an nyala. And this is the female nyala, so it's an antelope species. And only the females have this almost orangey color to their coat with these incredible white stripes. And if you look carefully, little white dots all around their legs. There's a very young one. Isabel, while we watch this beautiful antelope, you were wondering about how many people visit the game reserve. Sure, and in just this game reserve alone. So, Isabel, there's the Kruger Park, where absolutely anybody can go in their own car and drive around, and there's lots and lots, hundreds of thousands of people who go every year. And the Sabi Sands, where we are now, is also incredibly big. So if you imagine that this place that we're in is bigger than some countries, bigger than, for example, a small country like Wales, you can just see how many people would be able to come and stay. So there's lots and lots of different lodges here. If I had to guess, Isabel, I would say that there would be tens of thousands coming to visit the Sabi Sands each and every year. Now that's really important, because every time somebody comes to visit, they have to pay money to come and visit. And all of that money goes towards protecting these really special animals like this one, keeping them safe from anybody that might hurt them, and also just making sure that this area doesn't get turned into a farmland, for example. Now, Haley, you were wondering about how long an animal will live for. And that's a really good question, because there's so many different answers. An antelope like that, like the nyala, could maybe live to about 10 or 12. You know, like your pet dogs and cats at home that have quite a short life expectancy, that maybe live up to 15, maybe just 20 years old. So a lot of the antelope are like that. The leopards and the lions are also like that. A leopard and a lion will probably live up to between 10 to 15 years of age. Now, there's some interesting exceptions to that. An elephant can live all the way up to 60 years old. So elephants that we see, the one maybe that even left that pile of dung in the road, that elephant could be up to 60 years old as grandparents out there. And hippo will also live up to 40. Let's go see what else we can find, because I think our antelope have disappeared. I'm hoping secretly, but I'll tell you the secret anyway, I'm secretly hoping that we're going to find that elephant that left his poo in the road. But Red, you were wondering how many elephants are there in this area. And the answer was, in the Kruger National Park area, at last count, which I think was about 2 years ago, there were close to 15,000 elephants. So that's roughly how many elephants there are out here, 15,000 just in this area alone. So there are lots and lots of elephants wandering about. Now we've been really lucky over the last few days, because there's lots of water where we are, and the elephants are starting to get thirsty because there's not much water around us. So lots and lots of elephants have been coming to visit, and sometimes we see herds of easily 100 or more coming past us. Elephants are definitely one of my favorite animals, and I'd love to know what your favorite animals are as well. Now, at the moment, I'm just taking chances driving along. This morning there were lions walking down this road, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they might be somewhere around here, so keep your eyes peeled. It's cool enough now, because usually lions sleep in the shade, in the heat of the day, but it's nice and cool now, so they might be walking around, and you never know, a lion could pop out into the road in front of us. It's happened before. But Sarah, you were wondering, how do I know where to go, or how do I choose where to go? And Sarah, it's not my choice really. Sometimes I have a plan in the beginning when I set out, but most of the time that just goes out of the window. It's basically the animal's choice. A lot of what we do is called tracking. So what we do is we look for where the animals have walked in the sand. Oh, the light's not very good here, otherwise I would show you a nice example. But sometimes what we do is we follow the animal's footprints, and it will take us to the animal itself. So that's how I choose where I'm going to go. And it sounds like James is actually tracking, so he can explain it to you a little bit further.
Here we go. Look everybody, this is not a pile of dung that you want to have a smell of, not like the elephant dung which smells delicious. This is from a carnivore or an omnivore. Do you all know what omnivore means? Omnivore means an animal that eats both plants and meat. A bit like us, I guess. This is from an animal called a civet, which is like a big stripy mongoose. Or a big stripy weasel, I guess. It's an animal that is quite similar to what you get. It looks like a raccoon, but it isn't really related to a raccoon. And what we have here, we can see what the civet eats. Can you see over here, where my stick is pointing? I wouldn't want to touch this with my hands. We can see there, it's been eating beetles. You can see little pieces of beetle there, where my stick is. That's a piece of beetle. And then the little balls here are balls from a tree called the magic guarri. Those are the little balls, little berries, if you like. Then over here, where my stick is, Vyampi, this is a very special kind of food that just about only the civet is able to eat. And those are from millipedes. I don't know if you've ever seen a millipede, but milli means 1,000 and pede means foot. So they are little arthropods, or they're not insects, but they are jointed animals that have almost 1,000 legs. But most animals cannot eat them, and that's because these bits and pieces of what we call the exoskeleton or the shell are filled with a poison called cyanide. See if you can all say cyanide. 1, 2, 3, a cyanide. And cyanide is very poisonous to most animals, but the civet is very clever. He's able to eat the cyanide-riddled animal called a millipede or 1,000-foot. Let's carry on, see what we can find here. What I do want to show you some of the special grass that we have. Look at these special grasses. Now, I know that many of your parents will have a garden full of beautiful flowers. But you know, out here in Africa, where there's not a lot of water, it's often quite a good idea for us to plant grasses like this in our gardens, because they're so very pretty to look at. Isn't that nice? See, it's gone gold. It's like wheat. Very beautiful. Oh, Brand, you are interested in trees. Well, quickly, we don't have much time with you. Let me go across over here. This is the best tree that we have here, Brand. It's called a marula tree. And the marula tree is the most famous tree that we have here. And it's famous because it makes a beautiful fruit, a delicious fruit in the summertime that tastes like, I suppose it doesn't taste like anything really other than a marula. It tastes a bit like an orange and a bit like a banana mixed up, but very sweet. Delicious. And this is the marula tree, so that's one kind of tree. And then the most common tree that we get here is this thing here. That big green tree, and we walked past a lot of them. I bet you saw the elephant probably eating some of that. That's called the red bush willow tree, and that's the most common. Really nice question. Thank you, Brand. All right, kids, that's going to be it from us, and we're just going to show you the setting sun. Beautiful setting sun as you go off to the rest of your school day. It's only morning there in the United States, so have a good day and enjoy yourselves at school. We'll see you next time. And for the rest of you, you can go back to Jamie. I'll see you shortly.
And off we go in search of the Nkuma lionesses. Their tracks disappeared off somewhere into this direction. I could see what Sam meant when he said that they were somewhere here. We'll be looking out for them now. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and check Buffelshoek Dam first. There's a good chance now as we come to the end of the afternoon, depending upon whether or not they've eaten anything, there's a chance that they might be heading across to have a drink there. Let us go and investigate. Always incredibly special for all of us, I think, having a group of kids on the back of the vehicle with us. Never mind, things have changed. Day has changed. We're going backwards. You ready for this, Brian?
Ready?
Ready for this?
Seatbelts on.
So, what animal inspires this kind of reaction from us? Yep, wild dogs at the pan, wild dogs at the pan. Oh no, James is on foot, it's just me. Oh no. Oh, why are we on the other side of the reserve? Where have they been all day? Why have they popped out where we lost them? Were they hiding there all along? Oh goodness, everybody keep an eye on the Djuma Dam camera. Brian's somehow managing to drink water at the same time. That's very brave, Brian. Or very trusting, or both. Okay, so as the only vehicle out, I'm going to call in reinforcements. Our stations just had reports of Madach Puzamati at the Djuma Dam.
You can see, thanks, Jamie, the Djuma Dam in CP.
Negative, sorry, Andrew. Voyatella Dam. I'm making my way there now.
Okay, thanks.
I keep forgetting that there's a Djuma Dam on Cheetah Plains, and that dam that we have the camera up on is officially called the Voyatella Dam. Oh goodness, everybody hold on. I can't see anything. I'm probably about 7 odd minutes away. Hopefully I can get there quick enough to catch the dogs before they disappear. I think, however, that if James is around and about on foot, just in case, just so that we can concentrate on putting our foot down to disappear through the drainage line before the dogs do another vanishing trick on us. Oh, bumpy, Brian's still on the back.
Yeah.
Brian's cut his teeth on the back of Brent's vehicle during wild dog chases, so I know that he's going to stay on. Oh, we're making good time. Everybody else is too far away to get here. It's just us. Everything hinges on it, so keep an eye on where those dogs are going to disappear off to. Brian's still managing to drink water at the same time. I'm very impressed. I'm scared terrified. He's going to go flying off. Oh, straight into the sun, flying down the road to the west. And for those of you who are timing me, we must be about 3.5 minutes out. Or is that optimistic? That's probably optimistic. It's 3.5 minutes till we get to the other side of the dam. We've still got to cross the dam. It's always an interesting thing, gauging distance and speed on a reserve. Sorry, I have to have my hand up here, otherwise I can't see. Sam come in for Jamie. That's quite a useful sun blocker. Samwise for Jamie. I don't know why, I don't know, that the nickname Samwise has just stuck. James still continues to call me Pajamas on the Game Drive channel, which I find hilarious, but none of us have any idea where that name came from. Alright, we're nearly there. We're gonna make it. Oh, no answer from Sam. He's avoiding me. Okay, let's start slowing down here. The dog's still drinking at the dam. Any updates from there? Wonderful. We're going to get there in time. May this be slightly different from this morning's adventures. Sam, please can you take the Mahindra and pick James and Steph up from Treehouse Dam?
Please go ahead with that message again, Jamie.
Sam, if you can take the Mahindra to fetch James and Steph from Treehouse Dam.
Copy, on the way.
Yippee! Where are they? There they are. Oh, how wonderfully exciting. And to think that's where we sort of spent a good portion of the afternoon. Where were they hiding? Oh. Well, Brian, at least we were right. We were right about this morning. They were hiding somewhere in the drainage line. Sam, did you copy that message? I'm going to work on the assumption that he did. Oh, what a wondrous way to end off an afternoon. Just such a pity those wild dogs didn't time it for the kids to see them as well. Hello. Oh, so you emerge, do you? Beautiful creatures.
Yeah, station. We've got reserving males.
Let's just stop and see how this situation plays out. I just want to see if that just trying to work out who we've got here and what's happening. There are two adults lying off close to the dam wall, and then the young female that joined them, and then there's two more there. It would be wonderful if we could get a handle as to which wild dog pack this happens to be. The female's just lying down. So those of you, if you could send through your screenshots, preferably of the left-hand side of the wild dogs, then we'll be able to triple check which pack it is that we are looking at. Tattered ears. I think it might be the Investic pack, but I'm not 100% sure. And this female, as she was standing, to me, looked like she might actually be pregnant. Which makes sense. For wild dogs, they have a very set breeding time. That is around about now. In the next few months, they're going to be denning and keeping their pups there. I'm going to change our angle a little bit just so I can see the two that are lying down a bit further on the other side of the dam wall. That squirrel is absolutely furious. Chirping away angrily. And I do think it might actually be alarm calling at the wild dogs. Not that they present much of a threat to him. Right, let's take the best possible view. I saw two down there. There only appears to be one. There was one other option that I considered before I saw the female. That was that it was an investic dispersal pack, which is made up of about 5 males, originally from the investic pack itself. But as far as I know, that dispersal pack was a male dispersal pack. So with wild dogs, when the pack gets a little bit too large, they will disperse, particularly with young adults that are looking for mating possibilities. It will only be a male and female, alpha male and female that get to breed. Moments like this where you can really just see, I'll get back to what I was saying in a moment, but you can really see why their other name is the painted wolf or the painted dog. You look like a modern artist's canvas. You'd be surprised how well that coloration really works as camouflage. But yes, all I was going to say, just in terms of identifying them as you're getting your screenshots of these beautiful creatures, I'm just going to say that dispersal packs in wild dog tend to be single sex only. So males will disperse away together and females will disperse away together. Not necessarily all. Two as I drove up, so there must be another one on the other side of the mound, just where we can't see it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least. I wonder who we have here. Those of you out there, I'm sure, are furiously researching into your old screenshots of the sands in the investic pack. Just bear in mind, of course, that being wild dogs, it could be a completely unexpected pack. For the moment, these dogs are nice and still, provided us with an opportunity to catch up with them before they disappear off. Since they are relatively flat and peaceful, let's jump on the back with James and have a look at a mating pair of grasshoppers.
Right, so those dogs might be still, everybody, but they are certainly not as active as these grasshoppers are. I bet you can hardly see them. There are 2 grasshoppers here, caught in the throes of passion. There, a very large one in the front, and behind, a much smaller one. Now, these are obviously the same species. If I'd seen them together, apart from what they're doing now, I would have said that they're completely different. But very clearly they are not. And I don't know if you can see properly here, but that is the back end of both of them. There's the front end of the large one there. We've got some movement now. And that is the front end of the smaller one. I have no idea which is male and which is female. I suspect quite strongly that the little one is the male, and the female is the larger, more cryptically coloured one. And you can see what an unbelievably brilliant camouflage they have. Isn't that unbelievable? So she'll now go and lay eggs somewhere around here, I suspect. And they'll hatch into miniature versions of the adults. So grasshoppers don't go through what we call a hollow metabolic life cycle. They go through a hemi-metabolic life cycle, which means that they don't go through a larval stage like a caterpillar and a butterfly do. They go through what we call sort of various instar stages, where the youngsters, rather like us, resemble the adults. Isn't that amazing? Alright, we're going to leave you here, and let's head back to the dogs.
Beautiful animals. This female is a little bit restless. I don't know what she's seen. She's certainly trotting off with great intent. She went back to sort of greet the members of the pack. And she's now... Where is she going? She's moved behind us. She's oddly wary of the vehicle, and I wonder if this really is a pack that we've encountered before, if this is a different group. It's not impossible. The reserve where I used to work, which is not terribly far from here, it is a closed system. In other words, it's a fenced area, but quite a large fenced area. Nevertheless, never had any wild dog. And in the last few months, oh, hello, we get as well. We could well be on the move soon. But this particular reserve, a whole pack of wild dogs suddenly emerged out of nowhere, made it through the fences, and has taken up residence. And in fact, what are you doing, dog? Stalking a turtle dove. I don't think that's going to work out too well for you, no matter how fast you are. Also a female. So far the 3 dogs that I've been able to sex are females. It's interesting. I don't know where that other female went. Brian, can you see her back? Oh, there she is. What are you looking at? Oh, so there's something scary in the water. I love that curious head bob that wild dog do, assessing a situation. Maybe even that instinctive fear of crocodiles. That could also be one of the reasons behind that response. There's a couple of explanations behind this. It may be part of the pack that's separated from the rest, possibly the pups versus the adults, as does regularly happen, but it could also be a dispersal pack. If they are all female, that does increase the likelihood. Oh. Whatever was interesting about the water clearly isn't interesting enough to require further investigation. And they've realized that they've lost a female. She is all the way on the other side of the clearing now. It'll be interesting to see if these 3 get up and follow her. This whole dynamic at play here is absolutely fascinating. Oh, big yawn, yep. Time to get up. This is another female. And another female. Here we go. All females. Please take lots and lots of screenshots because this is interesting. So Penny in South Africa tells me that there were 2 separate breakaway groups in the Mulwati in the last 2 days, and this could well be one of them. I think it is. I think this is a breakaway pack. It's 4 females on the lookout for new and more exciting prospects. And already we might have the beginnings of an alpha leading them away, trotting off into the distance. Stay with them. You know how easy it is to lose wild dogs. Stations Madach now look like they're going to get mobile west towards quarantine. Or not. What an interesting dynamic. Just former fuzzies. Look at this. This is fascinating. This female obviously taking not the lead, then the initiative would maybe be a better description. And the other 3 not quite showing great enthusiasm to follow, but nevertheless up and moving behind her. And I think that we should too. Here they go. This is incredible. Penny, thank you so much for that information, because you have definitely allayed my concerns as to what might be happening here. I think you are absolutely right. This is a dispersal pack. Look at those white tails. And as they trot up towards quarantine, we're going to have to follow just so we don't run the risk of losing them if they spot something interesting. Leopold would like to know if wild dogs chase wild cats. And yes, unless it's a wild lion, in which case they would be exceptionally foolish to pick that fight. But wild dogs can and will chase leopards and cheetah, and any of the smaller cats as well. Unusual for it, it's usually because they have the advantage of numbers rather than it being a solitary one-on-one thing. So one wild dog would be no match for a leopard, but a pack of wild dog would most definitely be, and they have been known. For example, Kunuma got chased up the tree by wild dogs a couple of months ago. These girls will, if they are a dispersal pack, which I'm fairly certain they are, we could be proved completely wrong, of course. They could end up connecting with the rest of the pack. So that could happen as well. And Raisa, thank you for sending so many screenshots of these particular animals. I will be sending them through to Grant Beverly, who will help us identify. Look how spread out they are. Can you see how different this dynamic is to the usual pack dynamic that we see? That's the female in the lead far in the front, and the other three sort of ranging slowly behind her. And that is why I said she has the initiative rather than the dominance. They're pack animals, so they're staying together automatically. And the next few months will be one of the only times in these wild dogs' lives that they will probably show a little bit of aggression. Oh, they found a smell that's interesting. And once they do find some males, possibly males from another dispersal pack, they will spend a few days courting each other and getting used to each other's presence. At which point, once the pack is formed, it will become time to determine who the alpha is. Let's just catch up. I don't want to let them, just because it's us all alone, I don't want to let them get too far ahead. Oh, I've got a horrible feeling that we might have driven through some dog scat. And the dogs are now heading south towards Philemon's Dip. So they could well encounter, we could well meet up with Sam and James and Steph very, very soon, and Liam, of course. And once they do get to the point where they have formed a new pack and it's time to establish alpha, time to establish the alphas, this is where they show a little bit of aggression. Now, as the wild dogs race down towards Philemon's Dip, let's see where they decide to go next. They could be on their way to water. Oh, one's going off the road. Remember I said they're not quite as relaxed with the other vehicles as... Oh no, I've done a terrible thing. I have definitely driven through some wild dog scat. It's terribly smelly every time the wheel rotates in to the wrong place.
There's one mother and one cousin gather. Still a lot of pounds fresh frog.
We seem to be settling down once again. See how split up they are. Now in a proper pack dynamic that is well formed, it is usually the case that they pretty much lie on top of each other. See how much further ahead she is. Scouting ahead, looking for potential mating opportunities. Unless, of course, I'm completely wrong and this is part of a pack. Trotting down towards James, who has just caught up with him. Let's jump on with him.
Linking. Well, everybody, what a little stroke of luck this is. We've been picked up in a vehicle by Sam, and we were driving up the road. The camera's still rolling, and look, we're just the opposite side of the road from Jamie. She's coming towards us on the road with these dogs. My favourite animal. And listening. Look at the ears. It's become more and more apparent to me. Here comes another one. It's become more and more apparent to me as we've been following these dogs how important their ears are when they're hunting. This one's got a very slight limp. That's quite distinctive. Let's keep an eye on that. Look at them moving. They move with such incredible ease. Well, now here's a very nice question from Audrey. Audrey, you're just 12 years old and you want to know if the wild dogs will eat that dead impala. Here comes the next one, Viam. Audrey, it's actually not far from here. It's probably only about, I'd say 100 yards or so from where we are now. But we read in the books, Audrey, that wild dogs don't eat dead flesh, or at least rotting flesh. They prefer to have fresh meat, and so I'd say it's unlikely. But Audrey, as many people will tell you, wild dogs and many of the animals out here don't read textbooks. And so although the books say they won't eat that impala, maybe they will. I think it's unlikely, but it is possible. You can see them listening. Can you see them listening? Ears flicking from side to side and smelling as well. So we're just going to keep still while we've got this one in view. There's no real need for us to move. See the white tail tip? Just about all the dogs have white tail tips. About 1% of them have got a black tail tip. And I remember a very special dog, the alpha male of the first pack of dogs I ever knew. He had a black tail tip, so I will always remember him. He was almost completely brown with a black tail tip. And then in the background, of course, you can see Brian and Jamie. And that dog is tired now, not knowing whether to follow his mate or whether to carry on or wait for the others. I'm just going to stand up in the car and look behind us to see if I can see the other one, which is now asleep on the road behind us. It's doing exactly what the other dog's doing, yawning and going to sleep. So Steph's got a really good view of that one, as has Samuel, and we'll carry on looking at this one here. Can you see it there, Viam? You can see it a little bit.
Aubrey coming.
All right, let's go straight across to Jamie. She's got a really nice look of the dog that we've been looking at.
Wild dogs are on the move into the middle of this incredibly dense block. If they... oh, never mind. I was about to say if they continue to move like that, we are not going to be following them without running the risk of severe damage to the vehicle. You can see how thick it is in there, and it's not just how dense it is as we keep an eye on where these dogs are. It's not just how thick the vegetation is, it's also the thickness of the trees themselves that would damage the car. I'm just going to try and go in a little bit to get you a better view of her. But if they do... oh. No. This is why we couldn't stay with them this morning. We have an answer to that mystery as well. not that I'm completely defending us. All right. Well, that does answer a question for us. They are not nearly as relaxed as the other wild dogs that we have seen in this area before. Oh, I didn't even see the one in the road. But they are particularly skittish. So once they do go off the road, then we won't follow them any further. We don't want to give them further cause for stress. Oh, okay. Relaxing now again. And James has been keeping secrets. He has also got a wild dog there, right next to the vehicle. So let's head over and have a look at his view from this angle. Never mind, there appears to have been a slight accident with the camera. Goodness me. I hope all is okay on that vehicle. Oh well, we've got a lovely view of her nevertheless. She's the female that I thought looked slightly pregnant. Not slightly, you can't really be slightly pregnant, you're either pregnant or you're not. She's the female that I thought she looked pregnant, but I'm not 100% sure anymore. She definitely looks like she's got a rounder belly than the others, but it would be unheard of, I would say, for a pregnant female to disperse, unless maybe she could be one of the subordinates who's decided to move off. So, Cecilia, you were wondering if one of them was pregnant. She does look a little rounder than the others, but it would, as I said, very unusual for a pregnant wild dog to disperse from the protection of the pack. The only way that I could see it making any kind of sense would be if the wild dogs, if she was a very low-ranking female, a very subordinate female, with very little chance of her pups surviving. Generally, it is only the alpha female that breeds, as she disappears somewhere into this thick bush. It's only the alpha female that breeds. It does happen every now and again that a sort of lower-ranking female might have pups, and those pups do every now and again survive, but about 80% of wild dog pups come from the alpha female. I think that's the sort of the last of the view that we have. The one is still lying down there. I know that
cheetah pipeline just out of central there. She's coming straight east into the block again. So it looks like
sorry guys, it's
something killed from Awandawi, western side of cheetah pipeline.
Some interesting conversations happening there. Taxon's just called in that he found an Nkuhuma lioness crossing into Torchwood, but he thinks that they've come off a kill around Central Road, so exactly where we were tracking, exactly where we left and turned around and went towards the wild dogs. So a lot of the mysteries from the morning slowly starting to be unraveled now. Nkuhuma's had a kill in a block, and the wild dogs are skittish for vehicles off-road, which is why we couldn't find them this morning, because they were hiding. Goodness, lots of mysteries being answered today, or this afternoon. So, Judy H., you were saying if this is a dispersal pack, does this mean that... Oh, there we go. See how... Sorry, Judy, I will be with you in 1 second. But you see how disoriented and disorganized this wild dog pack is when compared to a pack like the Investec or the Sands pack. Spread out, not fully bonded, not entirely sure of their place in the world. Just judging by their behavior, I'd be almost certain that they were a dispersal pack, unless they were separated from the rest of their pack and feeling lost and confused, but I don't think so. They don't seem to share the same bonds. Well, off they go into this thick block. We'll do a loop, but we won't try and follow them through here, because I saw immediately as soon as we moved just ever so slightly off-road how nervous those animals became. So Judy, this does, oh, there we go, one last glimpse coming through this gap. Oh, two coming through this gap. Come on. Don't stop there. Promise you there's a wild dog there. It was about to come through. And then they both stopped dead. All right, we'll go back to Judy's question. The Investec pack alive and well. There we go. Apparently, I've only just heard that the Investec pack has lost a few members. I hadn't realized. Apparently, it's gone down to something like 8 or 9, which is very sad to hear. I hadn't realized that. That was some news that was shared by a viewer with me this morning. I'm not quite sure what their current total stands at exactly, but I'm sure that they are absolutely fine wherever they are. This just isn't them, apparently. The stations, these Madach now mobile to the east in the block south of Wahlberg's Road, away from Philemon's Dip. I think let's go the other way around. It might actually be a bit easier.
Standing by 3/4 of the way to the east of Eastway Alley.
Copy. They did have sort of a southeasterly direction to the way that they were moving when they went through the block. So they might pop out there. I'm going to go along Wahlberg's and Twin Dams.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've noticed, but they're quite skittish. So James and I are just having a quick discussion about our plan of attack, or at least the plan of following the wild dogs. Now he's going to stand by on the road to the south of where they just disappeared. I'm going to go all the way around the other way and just see if they don't pop out there. Either way, I think that we've been incredibly lucky this afternoon to have enjoyed a sighting like that, so unexpected. And I'm really, really glad that we managed to get to the dam in time. And now we just have to unravel the secrets as to where these wild dog came from. Now, dispersal packs can cover tremendous amounts of ground. They could have come anywhere from Bululi to northern Kruger, anywhere in those sorts of areas. Although it sounds like it's more like in the Mulwati concession, from what Penny shared with us. Either way, it is also getting a little bit dark for wild dog viewing. A little bit chilly, actually. If you'll excuse me, I'm just going to take the opportunity to pop an extra layer on. It's definitely suddenly got very, very cold. Ryan's broken out the very large gloves to keep his hands warm. I'll at least pop a scarf on, I think. Ooh, winter's here, and I don't do very well with the cold. I'm quite okay with heat, but the cold is not really my thing. As we go off in search of these wild dog, who will themselves be looking for a place to settle down for the evening, Ravi, you were wondering about the differences in the way in which wild dogs versus hyenas have responded to shrinking habitats. And this question needs a little bit of context. So wild dog numbers have dramatically decreased over the last 50 years, tremendously so. There was this wonderful period of recovery of the population before in the 90s wild dogs, all of a sudden their population sort of crashed without anyone really ever finding a full explanation as to why. And one of the solutions put forward was canine distemper, but the other was the fact that with their habitat loss, they just weren't able to cope and to adapt. Ravi was wondering why it is that hyenas have adapted so well, whereas wild dogs haven't. It's a difficult question to answer. I don't really have a specific answer for you. Some animals are just more adaptable than others. Cheetah, for example, are almost overly specialized in the way in which they hunt and the way in which they are designed, whereas leopards are incredibly resilient to different changes and incredibly adaptable. There are stories of leopards living in cities throughout South Africa without anybody realizing, scavenging, changing the way their natural behavior completely, doing something completely different with their lives. So I suppose the explanation behind the wild dog and the hyena is something similar. There's also the fact that hyenas and human beings as species almost evolved with a very, very close relationship to each other. We'll just dodge James there. James, just to confirm you haven't got visual. Copy, thanks. James giving us a little bit of extra room. Let's make sure we check well. He says he's not 100% sure if they've crossed or not, so they could well be on the other side for all we know. No sign of them. We shall leave James behind to man the fort as it gets a bit darker, and I think we'll go off in search of other things. Oh dear. And as we drive along, accompanied by the smell of somewhat fetid feces that has attached itself to the rim of my tire, I have a question about whether or not wild dogs will eat dung like other dogs. Now, wild dogs are awesome animals. They can be so entertaining to watch. Essentially what they will do when they get up to some dung is, yes, they will eat a little bit of it, they will sniff it, and they will roll in it. And particularly buffalo dung. Fresh buffalo dung seems to hold an extraordinary appeal for the average wild dog. They run straight up to it and they go barreling and rolling into it. They definitely enjoy that. They enjoy being smelly and they enjoy having lots of different types of smells on them. Though whilst they do not ingest a huge amount, they do enjoy playing in it. And Annabella, who is one of our 6-year-old viewers, you want to know, are the dogs afraid of the lions? And yes, the dogs are very, very afraid of lions. So they know that they're faster, but unlike the normal situation where dogs chase cats, in this case, the lions are much bigger cats than the wild dogs. and so the cats chase the dogs. Luckily for the wild dogs, the cats aren't really as fast as they are, and because lions are big, they're sort of big and clumsy and don't necessarily or aren't necessarily quick enough to catch them. The wild dogs want to stay far away from lions. In fact, Annabella's put her finger on one of the big theories behind a lot of the decline in wild dog numbers, or at least one of the theories in the decline of wild dog numbers. I've often spoken about our changing ideas of conservation and learning from our mistakes as time goes on. And it suggested that one of those mistakes was to put water holes in the northern parts of the Kruger, areas where the wild dogs would usually flourish, but sort of the more water-dependent animals might not, particularly buffalo. But with artificial water holes, that brought buffalo moving further and further up to the north and into areas where wild dogs typically had the space to themselves. And with buffalo, of course, the lions came following after. So it's one of the theories behind why there was such a sharp decline in wild dog numbers in the Kruger. It's just a theory, there's nothing proven, but it is a theory that to me holds quite a bit of weight in terms of its explanation. So yes, essentially, the wild dogs are afraid of the cats, and for good reason. Jilly, it sort of goes back to Ravi's question about spotted hyena. Jilly, you were wondering, because you've heard of cases of farmers shooting wild dogs to protect their livestock, and you were wondering if this was never the case with hyenas. And no, it was the case with hyenas. Look, spotted hyenas, their numbers have also declined, just not quite as sharply as the wild dog numbers have. And we've changed the ecosystem in our inimitable way of doing so as human beings. We have completely changed the world in which they live. So spotted hyenas probably face just as much, but maybe this is one situation where their reputation as scavengers might actually have protected them a little bit. In general, though, it's probably more the fact that wild dogs are diurnal predators, whereas spotted hyenas are mostly nocturnal. So the farmers saw the wild dogs responsible for, if they were responsible for taking out their livestock. Luckily, within South Africa, there are lots and lots of education programs that are currently going on at the moment in order to teach people that, or especially to teach farmers, that shooting or poisoning carcasses is not the way to protect their animals from being attacked. And there's lots of different approaches. A lot of big dogs have been utilized, big breeds of dogs, just as they are in mountainous areas of Europe. Burmese mountain dogs and so on. So they've been utilized as a method of keeping livestock safe without necessarily harming the predators. Even heard of alpacas being used as well. Alpacas being used as guarding sheepdogs. That's something very interesting that's been utilized. Back to our secret identity of the wild dog pack. Hemel was wondering, if the Investec is now 8, could our mystery wild dogs not include 3 breakaways from that pack? And the answer is no, probably not. And the reason I say that is, whilst those wild dogs that we saw were not necessarily old, they were not young either. I'm not sure if you noticed how there were nicks and scratches in the ears themselves. Their teeth were a little bit not quite puppy fresh. So those were not pups from the Investic pack. And the Investic pack only consisted of one female and two adults, one female and two adult males. Bearing in mind, of course, that they'd already had a pack disperse away from them earlier last year. So it would be unlikely that a pack of two males and an adult female would split up even further or away from the pups themselves. The pups are still a little bit too young, although they would be classified as adults now. They're still a little bit too young to be hunting on their own, or at least living on their own. They will stick around at least for another year, if not longer. So Himmel, unlikely, but again, stranger things have happened. Oh, tomorrow will just have to be the time which we investigate whether or not the Nkuhumas really did have a kill hidden away in that block, very, very close to Torchwood. Doesn't sound like, because Taxon was following up, it doesn't sound like he did find anything there. But it was getting a little bit dark when he set off on his search. And we'll have to wait until morning to find out. Sorry, just listening to the game drive comms. As we head into the chilly night, this is always one of the most exciting times to be out in the bush. I know I've said this many times, but really, winter really is one of the most exciting times.
Have you any luck with anything on your side?
Let me just turn this down. Only this morning we had that wonderful female leopard flush a civet. Now there's something I never got around to doing, and that was actually properly answering the question about how the phases of the moon affects the different animals. And Debbie was wondering now, with the dark phase of the moon approaching, how is that affecting the impala behavior? And Debbie, the answer is it's a difficult one. I thought that was a civet, I got very excited. It's a difficult question because usually on these dark nights, let's stop here for a moment, because that really truly is quite a spectacular scene.
Just communicate with them, yeah, see where they are, but yeah, if you want to do that, it's fine.
Let's just listen for a moment, because there's also sounds of frogs in the distance, as well as the cicadas. Black-bellied bustard calling far away. Beautiful. Always nice to just stop and enjoy a picturesque African sunset in relative silence. And I have seen many times... don't do that. Well done, Rusty. This this would be a very bad place for us to get stuck on the thin tree house dam wall. I was going to say, I've many times seen an African sunset shock people into awed silence. But back to Debbie's question about the impala. Hold on a second. I think I'm about to lose my microphone. It wants to disappear, so we might have to look at the sunset again briefly. No, it's hanging on there. Here we go. But back to Debbie's question as we continue our search into what's promising to be a very dark night. Now, typically, on the average day, when it is the dark moon phase, the new moon phase, with very little ambient light, or on a cloudy night, you'll find that the impala are utterly terrified, that they are huddling together in fear, usually in an open clearing, like, for example, quarantine, as open as they can make it, so that they can see any threat coming, or at least try to see any kind of incoming threat, and that way make it through the night unscathed. This time, however, during May and June and their rutting period, the males don't give the poor females any kind of chance to behave like that. So driven by or spurred on by their hormones, they spend most of the evening, despite the fact, and I heard them last night, even though it was pitch black outside, and we should know because we had a power failure, so it was really genuinely pitch black outside. But I heard the impalas sprinting about and chasing each other about. And that's one of the reasons why mortality rate for male impalas at this time of year, and unfortunately some females caught in the crossfire and caught up in the distraction, that's one of the reasons why it is so high. And that actually was a question that I never finished answering, and I think it was from John, about how full moon affects the behavior of the animals. So full moon essentially does the opposite to them. The opposite of the typical new moon behavior would be to wander around, not relaxed, because again, it's still a nocturnal time, it's still danger time, leopards and lions moving about, but a bit more relaxed because the animals or the diurnal animals, the daytime animals, can see better. And we are amongst them. I've been out on full moons, and I would never ever go walking in the bush at night for any period or for any kind of a distance. It is a scary adventure, and we are not the dominant predators once the sun goes down. But even we as human beings can see, if you let your eyes adjust and you go out into the middle of the night and you switch off all the lights around you, you will be able to see relatively clearly on a full moon night out here. So that applies even to human beings. The animals are a little bit more relaxed. The lions and the leopards that rely on stealth have to work a little bit harder on those kinds of evenings to catch their prey. So John, I hope you stuck around and you're still watching, because my apologies. I got distracted, and then I just kept getting distracted, and I never quite finished the answer. I think we were distracted by that incredibly sweet baby giraffe. Gracie, who is one of our 8-year-old viewers, was telling me, because we saw a little bit earlier on in the show, we nearly had a really nice sighting with some monkeys, but unfortunately they managed to escape our camera. But Gracie tells me that James is a little bit like a monkey, and that she didn't want to hurt his feelings, but that he said it was okay, to say that he was a little bit hairy, kind of like a monkey. Well, Gracie, I knew that James liked to climb trees, but the thing is, I don't really often get to watch James. You're very lucky because when James is out in the show, I'm either presenting or I'm helping to track. So it's not often that I get to watch James. So I haven't seen him climb trees nearly as often as you have. So I'll have to tell you though, Gracie, that James has been known to climb the tree in the middle of the camp in order to find cell phone signal, mobile phone signal, because it's not always that good in camp. I've seen him climb all the way up to the top of the tree outside the kitchen to get phone signal, and then he sits up there and he has a phone call up the tree. So I have occasionally seen James climbing trees. And speaking of James, I hear that James has hurried on home as the light has started disappearing. So in case you are all wondering where he has gone, he's disappeared off back to the warmth and comfort of camp. And of course, they can't operate in the Mahindra without lights to illuminate James's face. So as it got dark, they muddled on back to camp. So I'm going to say thank you very much on his behalf, as well as my own, for joining us once again on our Sunset Safari. Thank you, Brian, for your fantastic camera work. I'm sorry we didn't find a buffalo weaver, but there's Brian's tribute to Buffy the Buffalo Weaver. Beautiful tribute. And thank you to Rebecca and to Jerry in Final Control. Most importantly, thank you to all of you for joining us, for your sharing your questions and comments. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you for the Sunrise Safari. Bye-bye.